Okay, so I want to welcome everyone to Religious Life Sunday 2025 live Zoom meeting. My name is Brother Abraham. I'm from St. Gregory's Abbey, which is a religious order in the Episcopal Church. And with us is Brother Aidan, if he could wave, from the Order of the Holy Cross. That's a religious order in the Episcopal Church. And Sister Ellen Francis, wave. She is from the Order of St. Helena, which is a religious order in the Episcopal Church. And we have Brother Masood, wave, from the Third Order of the Society of St. Francis, which is a Christian community in the Episcopal Church. And then Sister Patricia Sarah from the CAROA Fellowship, which is a Christian community in the Episcopal Church. We hope that you guys have seen the 3 videos that we made trying to let people know the similarities and differences between Christian communities and religious orders. But to kind of boil it down, we do a lot of the same work, but the Christian communities and religious orders do it in very different settings. Religious members of religious orders live together. We have all our resources in common, and we work together in celibate communities. Members of Christian communities live in their own homes and manage their own resources and have the option of having their own families and jobs. And having said that, start typing your questions, be nice, and make sure everyone else gets a chance to ask a question before you start asking multiple questions. And we'll just wait and see for the first question. Don't be shy. Okay, Aaron McDaniel says, what is the direct impact day to day on life as a third order member? And I think this might be specifically about the Third Order Society of St. Francis. So, what is the direct impact day to day on life as a third order member?
Good question. Our order follows what's called a rule of life. And in the rule of life, we are committed to living out the particular principles of our order. The principles lay out our commitment to share the good news of Christ, to live simply, and to do those things that will uphold the body of Christ in a way that is in a more round table kind of way of approaching authority and relationships rather than in a hierarchical kind of way. So what that means, however, is that pulling away from or taking ideas from Paul's writing about in Christ there's neither male nor female, slave or free, so forth and so on. We work to uh, build community based on brotherhood, sisterhood, of equality. And so we strive for social justice. We work towards ways in which people can live together in just ways. And it goes beyond just our human relationships, but recognizing in the spirit of Francis that we're also responsible to the rest of creation. So there are issues around sustainability, climate issues, care of the whole planet in our areas. And so to be sensitive to those kinds of things, those are really some of the very basic principles of Franciscan spirituality that get carried out in our daily lives.
Okay, so next question. Okay, Dave Embry says, for those of you in religious communities, I think that I mean Christian communities, how do you balance your religious vocation with the obligations of daily life? How do you avoid letting it become just one more thing? And I want to ask Dave to follow up that question. Um, you say religious communities. Do you mean Christian communities or religious orders? That could you clarify that? Okay, Christian communities. So how does in a Christian community, how does one let me get back to that question. How do you balance your religious vocation with the obligations of daily life? How do you avoid letting it become just one more thing? So this would be for Sister Patricia, Sarah, or for Brother Masood.
I would say that um, I don't see it as two different things. Um, our life within the order is really an intensification, you might say, of our baptismal covenant, of our baptismal promises. So our life is being ordered by what it means to follow Jesus. Um, and so the particular Franciscan way has its own charism or its own flavor, you might say. Things of social justice, things of egalitarian relationships, things of being able to share the gospel, however that might be. The little word is to preach the gospel by what you do. And if you have to, you can say it, you can speak it. But the idea is that you're living out the life of Christ wherever you are. So whether it's in your family or on your job or in your neighborhood, no matter where it is, in school, you are following the way of Jesus. And so in that regard, it's not something that's over against what you would do. It's who you are as you respond to the way of the Lord.
And I'd like to add a few things. When I took vows in my religious community, and this would be true for all the religious communities, we promise to work towards something. We know we're not perfect, and as Brother Masood said, our foundation is the baptismal covenant, and it's something that all Christians are working towards with God's help. And in a religious community, I feel we have an advantage because we actually have support from the community itself. I'm inspired by the members of the community and their dedication, and I kind of feed off of that. And it's reciprocal, it's relationship, it's all of that. Um, and so we're all working towards something. And it goes to the rule of life as well as our vows. Uh, you were asking about balance. Well, if you're a family member and you have children or you have a spouse, that has to be factored in, and learning to balance that commitment to the commitment to our vows and charisms, and the things we aspire to become and constantly are becoming. We do have to take those other commitments into consideration. And one of our vows is to live with fidelity. And that means being true to the commitments that we make, that our yes is always yes, that we know that we can't always do two things at once. So we discern, we learn to pray about making those choices. Do I do this or do I do that? And there's no bad thing, there's no wrong thing, in other words. It's that I think the main thing is our intentions, that we stay true to that, and sometimes we fall down and we get back up.
Okay, we got a question from Aaron McDaniel. And I'm gonna read the question and we can answer it. But I think I got a suggestion from someone, which I think is good. Because we had a whole lot of people sign up for this, and you see who we have. It may work better after this question for people to just unmute themselves and we can have more of a conversation. Does that sound good with people? Okay, so let's do this. Let's first answer a question from Aaron McDaniel and then from Kathy Bowers. And then after that, let's unmute ourselves and just go with the conversation. So the first question from Aaron McDaniel: if you feel a strong calling to life in a religious community, how does one even begin prior to committing to aspirancy? And this would be work with either religious orders or Christian communities. So if either Ellen Francis or Brother Aiden or I could answer on the end of what a religious order, how we would do that.
I can speak a little bit to that if you like, Brother Abraham.
Oh, okay, do that.
I'm with the Order of the Community of the Paraclete. As I was telling Ellen, I was a lay associate with the Order of St. Helena for quite a time, many years ago, but I aged them and they could not accept me. I found my current community online, and I was attracted to what they put on the web. Most of these people are in Washington State, and I am in Florida. It doesn't affect my life as much as it should because I'm down here alone. And because of the pandemic, I have not even been inside a church building in months. I'm going to church online. But my local church community is very supportive. And I feel like the first thing I do when we're all going physically to church is show up in habit and let people know, because I have had people stand there and tell me that the Episcopal Church does not have any religious orders, and they're looking at me in a habit. So I'm not the kind of a person that you would think would be advertisement for the order, but in a sense, that's what I'm doing by being the only member of the community in this church.
Right.
So does that help?
Okay. Yeah, yes, it does. Thank you. As far as where does one even start? I started before the internet ever came around. It's a lot easier now. Go to two websites. CAROA.net. That's CAROA.net. That's a website for religious orders. Or NAECC.net. NAECC.net. That is a website for Christian communities. Go to those websites. There are links on those websites to different religious orders, that's on the CAROA website, or different Christian communities, that's on the NAECC website. You can go straight to their websites. Just look around, just get a feel for what they do, who they are. A lot of them will have Facebook pages. A lot of religious orders, I don't know about Christian communities, but a lot of religious orders have Facebook pages that are not actually run by the nuns and monks. They're just fans of that religious order, and you can see how the people who hang around those religious orders are. Start there. Once you go to the website, the different websites of the different religious orders and different Christian communities, there will almost be a contact page where you can get in touch with either a vocation director or a novice master or a formation director, or if not that, just contact the superior. You can contact them directly and just write them an email. Let's say, I am blah, blah, blah. This is my station in life. I wonder if it might be good for me to think about joining this community. That's how it's done now. Religious order. Go online, go to the CAROA website, the NAECC website. Look at all the different orders, and it really is important to look at all of them and not dismiss some out of hand, because you may just be turned off by one little thing on a website or something, and not realize that the way of life that these people are living actually fit with you very well, and you have just been turned off by one little thing. So look deeply at all the websites. And Francis.
Yeah, I'd like to add to this. Within the CAROA communities, the vocations directors all know each other. So if you contact one CAROA community and start talking with them about who you are, what you're looking for, they may discern. We've done this many times, that we've discerned this person really ought to look at another community, or at least check out several communities. So we are not in competition with each other. I think there was a time that happened, but not anymore. So even if you think one community might possibly be what you're looking for, if you contact them, you can have a wider conversation about the whole scope of religious life.
And that reminds me, we want to help you thrive, and we want to help you flourish.
Mm-hmm.
And so we will do what we can. If whatever religious order or Christian community you contact, we will help you find your place. And I got to say, don't keep putting it off. Especially for a religious order, it can get too late. You can get in debt. You can get so many responsibilities that there comes a times that you can't shut down your life and enter a religious order. Don't put it off. And does anyone? Oh, Brother Aiden.
Yeah, I just wanted to share my own experience of beginning that process, and to say, the internet, there are a lot of great resources on the internet. It's wonderful to check out all of these communities through web pages and Facebook and all of that. But I also think there's absolutely no substitute for visiting in person, meeting members of the community. We are an incarnational church, and our communities are incarnational communities. Our religious life is incarnational. And so my own experience was I felt for a number of years that I might have a monastic vocation, but that was just kind of this, nebulous experience or leaning, until I actually came to the community where I am now on retreat. And I said, oh my gosh, this is what it is. This is where I'm called to be. I'm not called to be a monk in some kind of generalized way. I'm called to be a monk specifically in the context that I'm in. And so I kind of liken it to falling in love with someone. You may have a general sense that you are called to be in a committed relationship with another person, but until you meet a specific person that you want to be in that relationship with, it doesn't really mean much. So really, check communities out online, but actually talk to people who are members of these communities, get to know people, and find out where you really are called to in that sense.
Yeah, and I want to add to what Brother Aiden said. Exact same thing with me. I was looking at different monasteries. We visited some. The first morning, saying, here at my monastery, sitting there in the dark church, I told myself, this is for me. Yeah.
For my journey, I joined a Christian community first and was connected with them for about 5 years. I think the farthest in I got was as a novice. And then I realized I was really called to live in community. And so then I left that community and discerned with the Order of St. Helena.
And although within the Christian communities, most of us are living in a dispersed way rather than in monasteries or convents, the idea that Brother Adam was saying about us being uh, incarnational still matters. Uh, so for me, it was a matter of meeting some people who were a part of the Third Order. One was already a professed person, another one was a novice, another one was a postulant. They were in three different stages of formation. And that gave me a chance to meet some people and to get a sense of what they valued and how they were living their lives and that kind of thing. And that was a big part of it as well.
I think it's also possible uh, to actually experience, to put your toe in the water in a way. For example, with the Adam Carr Fellowship, we have something called a seeker program where you can actually meet with other people who are in discernment about it's pre-aspirancy, but it's to get to know people on Zoom because that's the way we best function at this point. There are also opportunities to pray with members of the community and participate in other ways. And we view this as a discernment process. And it's to help inquirers sort of listening and feeling their way, but maybe not with us. It could the more we know about other communities, the more we can help people find that place that they're really called to be. And that's our desire. It's just a matter of helping people find their way. We're all on a journey. And other religious communities may have similar opportunities to kind of, even though you can't come to necessarily to a place to visit, that there may be ways to get to know people better online.
Mhm.
Okay, now we're going to take one more question from the chat. And after this question from the chat, we can all unmute ourselves and have more of a conversation. Okay, Kathy Bowers says, how do you navigate what's going on politically with the attack on immigrants and marginalized persons?
To start that by saying that we are all, if you like, we're connected to the Episcopal Church through a bishop, that each of our communities elects a bishop visitor. Those of us who are ordained are also under the authority, so to speak, of the bishop in the diocese where we are resident. And in my experience with this, I live in South Carolina and I'm ordained and I'm resident in the Diocese of Upper South Carolina. And just last week, the bishop had a meeting with all the clergy and gave us some direction about how he expected his clergy to respond to the situation that we're in. And I think our bishop visitors may be helpful to us in working out how we do that. In our documents, our customal, we also have, even outside the present unpleasantness, we have guidelines for how we respond to all kinds of situations. So if there's something that, for example, a sister wants to do in habit that is going to possibly be dangerous for the community or have some political repercussions, we check it out with the whole community. So I was invited to be Grand Marshal of the Gay Pride Parade in Augusta a number of years back. And I checked in with my community to say, is this okay with everybody? This could have repercussions. And we all decided, that it was worth doing. And in the present situation, living in South Carolina, this is difficult. We're in a very, leaning towards red, not purple, even leaning towards red environment. So here at the convent, we try to be a place of welcome for everybody. When we go out into the world, we preach the gospel. We just stick to the gospel. At least that's what I've been doing. And that's how we're trying to navigate this. It's not easy.
For us within my order, the Third Order Society of St. Francis, it's built into our principles, really. Specifically, for instance, to spread the spirit of love and harmony, to spread the spirit of love and harmony. And then that gets, we look at that and we look at the implications of that. I mentioned Paul's statement of not male or female, slave or free, so forth and so on. And so using those kinds of elements from the scriptures, our principles have been created and we reflect on them every day. We literally reflect on our principles every day. They're divided up into 30 parts, and each day it's a part of our meditation and to think about how that is to be applied to our lives and to the way we interact with the society. So, and of course, each person will have to do that in a way that is workable for them. But there is certainly the concepts are there, the principles are there for us to engage. And again, as Sister Ellen Francis was saying, I'm a priest of a diocese, and so our bishop has been very, very clear in this diocese, the Diocese of New York, calling the priests together, letting all of us know where he stands, and not just where he stands, but where our convention stands. Our convention, diocesan convention, has made very clear that this is a diocese that is supportive of asylum and will do everything possible to protect our brothers and sisters, whether they are Christians or not, whether they are Episcopalians or not, but they are human beings who are people of God, children of God, whether it's under our label or not. And we are called to be humanitarian in that way because of our faith, not because of partisanship, but because of our faith is how we are responding to that.
There are principles that we have in our baptismal covenant,
Yes.
and those speak to us. Some of the religious communities, particularly, are focused on living out the gospel. And a diocese, Bishop Marianne Buddy has been very clear about her interpretation of our obligation to those who are vulnerable and scared.
Yes.
And so we don't act as a community. We act individually within our own understanding of our baptismal covenant and our way of living out our life in Christ. And we do listen to our bishops, and we do listen to the positions of the church. But we also listen to God. And everyone isn't going to always come out exactly on the same page on every single thing, but being merciful is something that I think we can all agree is important.
One thing that I tend to do is to write our state and federal representatives and senators and let them know the fact that what is so often called Christian is in fact not. And I let them know how I feel, how I understand to be a Christian, and that I vote. And I have had responses, actually one actual phone call back from a state senator who was very, very surprised that me calling myself a Christian took some of the stances that I did in favor of trans people, gay people, immigrants. He was surprised. He had never thought that would be a Christian response. And and so that is at least direct action that we can take. And it sounds odd, and I don't want to put this in a bad way, but the fact that I'm a monk in a monastery, I think maybe gives the state senators, state representatives, and U.S. representatives may kind of alert them more strongly than if just a citizen who was not in a monastery. And I let them know that I vote and that I am a Christian, and I have different values than what is commonly called Christian today. And that has surprised my elected officials. But at least they know now.
I'll just add to what everyone has said. Yes to everything that everyone has said already, and also I think one of the ways that we in my monastery are really trying to be present and attentive in this situation is to hold space to be a community of peace. That the monastery is a community of peace where people come here to find peace. And that comes through our prayer primarily. The prayer is the absolute foundation of everything we do here. And any social action has to be grounded in prayer and come out of prayer and return to prayer.
Yes.
And so that's the kind of emphasis that we put on that here. And I will also say that as someone who's both a monk and a priest, so I have my foot in both areas, and I'm in a parish as well as a priest in charge of a parish. So I have that connection with the diocese as well. The sort of place I find myself in vis-a-vis the Diocese of New York is also reminding us, and I hear Brother Masood is also in the Diocese of New York doing this too, that the church is not a social service organization. We have a very clear moral perspective, and that's important to be able to articulate it. But we have something that a social service organization doesn't have. We have the gospel of Jesus Christ. And that is our mission, that's our focus, that's our grounding and our foundation. And I think those of us who are particularly rooted in lives of prayer because of our commitments in Christian communities and religious orders, we bear witness to the larger church of what the foundation is. It's not to say that our brother and sister clergy and lay folks are not also grounded in prayer. But I think when you are committed in a way to take this space every day to reconnect in prayer, it does have a different effect on how you are when you're articulating the moral vision.
Okay, so let's do this. Let's unmute ourselves, and because of the small but mighty numbers of people we can have more of a conversation. But be nice. Don't hog the space. And here we go.
Aaron McDaniel here. I have a question. One of the things that I've been kind of concerned about is diversity in the orders and in the communities. When you look online, you don't necessarily see a lot of that diversity. Is that just sort of misrepresented pictorially, and really there is more diversity within the communities and within the orders, or is that, am I seeing that correctly?
The way I read what my order put online, diversity, radical inclusion was one of their chief, I don't know the word, but that's what attracted me to this community. And the way I tell people about it is I say I'm convinced that if some little green man came from another planet and wanted to join the Paracletes, they would say, "Come on down." We have male and female, we have straight and gay, married and single. Um, it is a community of radical inclusion.
We do have a sister from Ghana. We've had several sisters from Ghana over the years. We've had Hispanic sisters. We have a Japanese sister, and we have now and have had Native American or part Native American sisters, but most of us are like me. So yes, some of the, just speaking for the religious orders, we do have people from other backgrounds and races and gay and straight, and I wish we had more.
Yeah, I will second what Sister Ellen Francis said. You know, there are kinds of diversity you can see in a picture, and there are diversity that you can't see in a picture. We are, in my order, we are certainly more racially diverse than we were when I first came to the order. We have a number of Spanish-speaking brothers at this point. We have a number of brothers of color, which was not true when I first came. We had two brothers of color when I first came, and now we have more than that. We're still mostly a white community. We also have a monastery in South Africa that at this point is largely Black South African community. But there are other kinds of diversity that we have in terms of educational experience and theology and those kind of less visible aspects. And one of the challenges and the joys of living in community is that you can all look the same and have very similar backgrounds even, and be extremely different from one another and have a lot of challenge living together. But I think, as Ellen Francis was saying, we're always trying to become more diverse in the ways that you can see too, racially, and in terms of gender expression and things like that as well. But it's a part of our history too. We've largely been a very well-educated, white, upper middle class group of folks, and it's hard to break out of that too.
Mhm. When
I
the
think
question was,
go ahead.
no, go ahead. I'll go.
Oh, thank you. I think it's also as important as your question is. I think what I would stress more is how are people received? Are we being hospitable? Are we being open? Are we conveying that all are welcome truly? And I think that that's not always reflected in the numbers of people of color, for example, that are more obviously diverse, showing up to the door and wanting to know more about us. All we can do is reach out and help people get to know us and what we try to bring to not just to our own community, but to the communities in which we participate in our congregations and our dioceses and in other regards. I can tell you I've never questioned the openness and the hospitality. But we do have an issue of people just not understanding what this is about and how it might fit in their lives.
Mhm. I'm the president of the association, the National Association of Episcopal Christian Communities. And so I'm in touch with all of the Christian communities in the Episcopal Church. And so my own story is that one of the reasons, a major reason why I was drawn to the Third Order Society of St. Francis was because in its literature, it was more explicit about that kind of welcome to people of all races. And that was good news to me back in the 70s as a Black man in the Episcopal Church. Yeah, I knew that the Episcopal Church was supposed to be welcoming, but it wasn't very often that I heard it spelled out so explicitly. And so that was a particular draw. Um, I would say that most of the Episcopal Church in this country is predominantly white, right? Predominantly. And so that's another reality. Um, and so that's reflected also in the breadth of our communities. And as Sister Patricia was saying, uh, there needs to be, or there has to be an attitude of going out and making contact. Um, there's always kind of the idea that if we build it, they will come, you know, and that's not the way it works all the time. We also have to extend ourselves and to go into those places and into those parishes, into those neighborhoods, so forth, and say, here we are. And to share what the particular community has to offer, and to actually be there in some way, to show up. And I think that that goes not only about Black people, but any people, that we make ourselves available by being there in whatever way that can be. And that could be very helpful. Over the past couple of years, I have actually led a program for both the CAROA communities and the NAECC communities to emphasize the fact that we could do a better job of being more inclusive in terms of race and ethnicity. I think for the most part, our communities are very, very open in terms of gender expressions, et cetera, very much so. Um, but there's still more to be done. Yeah.
One thing on that is also for religious orders, it's the members of religious orders that you're seeing is one expression of diversity. Another is who we welcome here in our guest houses, and and that has a lot to do with the geographical area that you're in. Western Michigan, almost everyone is Dutch Reformed, and which is extremely white. And if you're not Dutch Reformed, you're usually Mennonite, which is also extremely white. But even having said that, living in an extremely white area of the country, we have people of all different races, religions, gender expression, cis guests, trans guests. They're all welcomed. We all are supposed to welcome them just as if Jesus showed up at the doorstep, and we usually can do that. People are people, but as far as who are members of religious orders, that's you can be open to people as you can, but you cannot make people join a religious order. So you get who you get. And as far as diversity goes, you just get diversity as it comes to you, and also in the religious order and in the guests that are with you every day. You get who you get, and you welcome whoever you get.
I think that welcome includes, it's a tricky thing sometimes, because what often people who are in the so-called minority groups experience is that when they arrive, they're expected to fit into the kind of cultural norm of the community. And if the cultural norm is not one of truly being open to diversity, then the person does not feel welcomed. And that's a real challenge, I think, for any community, uh, whether it's no matter what the community is, what does it mean to be welcoming? I've worked with congregations who've said, well, in particular congregation I was doing some consulting with, they wanted more Hispanic people, more Latinos to be a part of their community. And so I listened to them and I said, are you ready to sing songs in Spanish? Are you ready to have a greater diversity in your coffee hour in terms of what food is brought? I went down a list of those kinds of things, and they began to understand that what they really meant was that they wanted people to come in and be exactly the way they were, and to eat the same food, and to sing the same songs, and you follow what I'm saying? And so I think that's something that we really do have to look at when we say, are we welcoming? Are we really ready to receive the other person as they are? And how is that going to be incorporated into the life of the community? And that's tricky. And I know it's tricky. I know it. So that's another piece of it. And how is it that one can truly receive the other as the other and be a part of that, you know?
I was thinking something very similar to what you expressed, Masood, that we've experienced a number of times in our community since I've been here. Sometimes around very obvious forms of difference, and sometimes around more subtle forms of difference. But um, I think one of the real keys not just is are you welcoming as a community, but are you willing to do the work? Once the difference starts to rub against the dominant culture within the community. And that
Yes.
could be around race, that can be around gender, that can be around education, it could be around age, it could be around a whole host of things. And so I think a part of the discernment when you're looking at a community is not just do I fit in this community? Am I welcome in this community? But also, how healthy is this community? Is this community having the difficult conversations that are messy and maybe they're not doing it perfectly, but they're willing to engage in those conversations?
Yes.
And we've had some very messy conversations in my community, but we're willing to have them. And I think that to me, that's a real sign of health. So it is the welcome, but it's also continuing to grow to really be more welcome.
Two, there's the reality is that each new member changes the community. It might be subtle, but to truly be in relationship, it's a two-way street. And so when we welcome a new member, we with an open heart, uh, we also allow that they may show us things about ourselves, about our community. They may have valid new ideas, and those can rub up against folk. And but we have to respect one another and listen. And we're in sacred listening is something we try to cultivate, that every voice is heard and valued. And we don't necessarily have to make a decision or change everything we're doing, but to allow other voices to be truly heard and respected.
It goes back to the baptismal covenant again. Will you seek and serve Christ in all persons, loving your neighbor as yourself? That's a tall order, but that is what we say, I will with God's help, you know? Will you seek and serve Christ in all persons, loving your neighbor as yourself? And so it's living into that and having those conversations and really seeking the Christ there. Um,
Mhm.
that's the task.
So feel free. Anyone else? We don't have to keep on this subject. If someone has something else to say on this subject, go ahead. But if not, uh, new subject, new question.
I guess I have another question. For several years, I've been feeling this call that feels like a calling to some sort of monastic life, which is confusing because I'm married. um, so I've been looking pretty closely at oblate programs with the religious orders and at the Christian communities, and I wonder if any of you could talk about the difference between those paths and what they offer, and how you came to your decision.
Well, I know with some of our communities, within the Christian communities, um, to be a full member of the community means going through a formation process, and that formation process may be as long as, say, 2.5 years or so. It also means with the intention of taking vows for life to that community, which are renewed usually annually for many orders, communities. Um, it also means that, um, well, that's it. You're submitting yourself to a formation process that's going to be at least 2.5 to 3 years, and it's with life intent. There's a rule of life that you would engage and would adhere to during the rest of your life. To be a part of the community that's an associate or a companion or an oblate is usually less intense than that. It usually does not require a formation process that would be lengthy and very intense. It's usually a kind of friendship relationship that you have with the order. You're supporting it by your prayers, you're supporting it by your donations. Um, if there is some type of project that the community has, you may want to participate in some type of outreach program that they're doing, something of that nature. Um, but it's a far less intense and involved kind of relationship, and it certainly would not have the same kind of intention of lifelong relationship as well.
Masood, I have a question. I just don't know the answer. Do the Christian communities have oblates?
Some do, well, they may not call them oblates. They may call them associates.
Yes.
In our case, we call them companions.
Okay.
Yes.
So usually, so yes, associate, at least for our community, an associate has a friendship relationship. We have a cross that we give an associate when they make their promise, and we help them develop a rule of life, but there isn't a formation program. And with community to community, there may be a more in-depth formation process to become an oblate.
Ah,
But that usually would be of a religious oblate to a religious order. So you're connecting to a group of people who do live together and who have vowed to each other. Um, So I
I
think
would
that's a,
suggest, sorry,
go ahead.
I would suggest, just as if, I think maybe the first question we had is, how do you start? Joining a religious order, same thing. How would I start looking at being an oblate? If you're interested in being an oblate of a religious order, go to CAROA.net, Christian Community, NAECC.net. Look at all the communities. Look at on their websites. They're going to have info. And I know at least religious orders, they're all going to be different. And here at St. Gregory's, we have two groups. There's the Confraters, which is a huge group. It's very loosely organized and intentionally. And then there's the Oblates, which is a very small group, which is a lot more intense. And it's small intentionally because it is more intended, it involves a rule of life. So they're all going to be different. Just start looking at different orders and look at the information on their oblate or confrater or associate program, and go from there. And don't be dismissive at first glance. Look deeply. There may be more there than you might think.
Yeah, I
And
think
just to
another,
encourage you that that sense of calling that you're experiencing, I mean, that is God's invitation to you to move more deeply into your relationship with God. And
Yes.
being married is not an impediment to that. That is a part of how God is calling you to be deeply in love with God. And so, I have one of my best friends felt deeply called to monastic life and to married life. And at one point he said, "Why do I think these are opposite things? I can have both of these things." And he is very happily married, and he's a member of a Christian community, very happily vowed member of a Christian community. And for him, he's able to bring those two, what some people would think of as opposite vocations, actually together. They're one vocation for him.
That has been my case as well.
I think the other question would be, what attracts you to being an oblate, and what attracts you to being a member of a Christian community, and what are and try to discern the differences, and I would say that prayerful discernment is always helpful, and to trust that God will guide you to the right place.
It might be also wise, as Brother Aiden said, religious orders are incarnational things. And if you want to be an associate or an oblate, it's difficult, but you may want to just visit some. And if not, I know that some associate groups from some religious orders have their own Facebook group. Maybe you could ask to just maybe get a sneak peek at how people relate with each other through those groups. And as all religious orders are different, I think probably the associate groups are going to be really different too, which is a good thing.
I just want to add one more thing for the record and for anybody who's watching this later on. Get a good spiritual director. That's
Yes.
so important
Yes.
in having a rich life of prayer and discerning God's will for you. Get a good spiritual director. And if you don't know where to start, then look at Spiritual Directors International. They have a database online of spiritual directors. Many people are doing direction over Zoom now. I still
Yes.
recommend in person. It has a different character to it, but find a good spiritual director.
and also many religious orders have members who are spiritual directors.
Yeah.
And the same with the Christian communities.
And just on our note about diversity, I think that probably almost all religious orders their associate program. There are single people, married people, gay people, straight people, people in every on every part of the spectrum in between those, cis people, trans people, people of many different denominations, also lay and ordained. Usually, in the Episcopal Church at least, the associate program, whether they're oblates or confraters or whatever, that will usually be an extremely diverse group of people, and that's really good too. Okay, is it maybe getting to the point where we can say we all love each other, and if we have more questions, to send them to Sister Ellen Francis has her to religiousLifeSunday@gmail.com. Or don't be afraid, go to different orders websites themselves. If you don't know who to contact the superior. He or she or they will get the message to who needs to get the message. Anyone you contact at any religious order or Christian community, they're going to get the message to the person who needs the message.
And on the NAECC website, as you have already said, there's a contact person indicated, or a number or email address that's there, that feel free to contact that person.
I receive the emails from the Religious Life Sunday at Gmail, and I will either respond myself or forward it to somebody who I think would do a good job of answering.
Okay, and we all hope that whatever vocation you choose, you will be fulfilled if you persevere. That is the key.
Would someone explain to me, now that this is being recorded, how can we access it? Can we access it later on? And how do we tell other people how to access it?
Okay, it will be on the YouTube channel for Religious Life Sunday. So if you go to the religiousLifeSunday.net website, religiousLifeSunday.net, and scroll down the page, there's a whole section with some videos that are actually, the five of us are there. And there's a link to our YouTube channel. And I may put this actually on the website, so it'll just be right there.
Thank you. I don't know whether this is the place to say this. I'm a little disappointed that we are a small community, and I don't perceive us as being very organized. How can you encourage, or can you, someone else, to pay attention and take part and participate? We're a small order, but I'm the only one from my community that showed up. and I'm a little disappointed.
Well, I think that's partly why we started Religious Life Sunday, as a Sunday that we can go out and say, hey, everybody, here we are. But also we sort of hang more things on that. And the Episcopal Church at General Convention approved Religious Life Sunday. So we really have the support of the church behind it. And we're using that to try to get the word out. And we show up, we meet people, we tell them the good news of Jesus Christ and the good news of religious life.
Thank you.
Even after, it's now been 3 or 4 years of Religious Life Sunday, you're still going to find people who go to church every Sunday in an Episcopal church, and they're going to tell you, no, the Episcopal Church does not have.
Exactly.
So you can only do what you can do.
Oh, yes, like I said, I've stood there and haven't and had people tell me that. So
Okay, it looks like the Holy Spirit is telling us that this has been very good and productive, and we'll see where it leads from here.